Hello, Telefuse here, and today I'm going to talk on history rather than on Christianity. Um, I have studied as best I can history for years. When I was a reenactor of the war between the states, I really got into it because people would ask us, "What are you fighting for?" The Southern soldier, and I wanted to give them a honest answer, so I went and read and read and read. So there's been something's been going on for decades in this country. I don't understand it. I don't know why it is, but a lot of people, ministers, there's a guy named David Barton, they're going around saying the Constitution never protected slavery, and they've got these big, long speeches. But the thing is, this simply isn't true. The Constitution did, in fact, protect slavery. So you're asking, can I prove that? Well, for my first piece of evidence, I'm going to go to the inaugural address of the man who was president in 1861, Abraham Lincoln. So here goes. There is much controversy about the delivering up of fugitive slaves from service. The clause I now read is as plainly written in the Constitution as any other of its provisions. No person held to service or labor in one state, under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of party to whom such service or labor may be due. It is scarcely questioned that this provision was intended by those who made it for the claiming of what we call fugitive slaves. The intention of the lawgiver is the law. All members of Congress swear their support to the whole of the Constitution, and so forth, and you can read the rest, and you can call up Lincoln's whole inaugural address. Now, to take this idea further, I have a couple of letters that Lincoln wrote to a man named Solomon Chase about 1859. So I'll read the first one. Yours of the 13th instant is received. You say you would be glad to have my views, although I think Congress has the constitutional authority to enact a fugitive slave law. I have never elaborated on my opinion upon the subject. My view has been and is simply this. The U.S. Constitution says the fugitive slave shall be delivered up, but it does not expressly say who shall deliver him up. Whatever the Constitution says shall be done, and has omitted saying who shall do it, the government established by that Constitution, ex vi terminium, is vested with the power of doing. And Congress is, by the Constitution, expressly empowered to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution all powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States. This would be my view on a simple reading of the Constitution, and it is greatly strengthened by the historical fact that the Constitution was adopted, in a great part, in order to get a government which could execute its own behest, in contrast to that under the Articles of Confederation, which depended in many respects upon the states for its execution, and the other fact that one of the earliest Congresses under the Constitution did enact a fugitive slave law. But I did not write you on this subject with any view of discussing the constitutional question. My only object was to impress you with what I believe is true, and the introduction of a proposal to repeal the fugitive slave law into the next Republican National Convention will explode the convention and the party. Having turned your attention to this point, I wish to do no more. Okay, now he wrote a second letter to Mr. Chase on the Republican Party problem. Apparently there was one group there was a fugitive slave law, and there was one group that didn't like something about it and wanted to repeal it, but there was a lot of other people that did like it, and so this was causing some consternation in the Republican Party, which tells you something about the Republican Party. Okay, dear sir, please pardon the liberty I take in addressing you as I do now. It appears by the papers that the late Republican State Convention of Ohio adopted a platform of which the following is one plank. a repeal of the atrocious fugitive slave law. This is already damaging us here. I have no doubt if that plank be even introduced into the next Republican National Convention, it will explode it. Once introduced, its supporters and its opponents will quarrel irreconcilably. The latter believe the U.S. Constitution declares that fugitive slaves shall be delivered up, and they look upon the above plank as dictated by the Spirit, which declares that fugitive slaves should not be delivered up. I enter upon no argument one way or the other, but I assure you the cause of the Republicanism is hopeless in Illinois if it be in any way made responsible for that plank. I hope you can and will contribute something to relieve us of it. Okay, so I think I made my case. One of the earliest Congresses enacted a Fugitive Slave Act. If the Constitution says the runaway slave has to be returned, well, my little bitty old brain, I see that as a Constitution saying that owner, that guy who demands a return, has the right to own it. Therefore, it's pretty clear to me the Constitution protected slavery. I do not know what is motivating these people to say that. They have some sort of game plan, some sort of agenda, but anything that's based on a lie is not anything I want to be associated with. If you're going to lie about the Constitution, man, just, go away. Just shut up. Anyway, the other thing this points out is the president cannot override the Constitution. The Constitution can only be amended by Congress proposing amendment and the states ratifying. The president is no way involved with that process. So this law being on the books, Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had no effect on slavery. He had no legal or constitutional authority to end slavery. And people run around and say, oh, that's the end of it. No. And in fact, as far as I know, I'm one of maybe 3 people that read it. Okay, let me break it down to you. Within the United States, after all the other states seceded, it was 4 slave-holding states: Missouri, Maryland, Kentucky, and Delaware. And nothing was ever done during the whole of the war to get these states to abandon slavery. Their slavery did not end until after the war, when the 13th Amendment was ratified. And that's what ended slavery, right? Now, so the reason I say that is because the proclamation says those states now in rebellion. Well, these 4 states weren't in rebellion. It ends with, for all other places, it will be as if this proclamation had never been written. So those 4 states are exempt from it. And that's the only place Lincoln had any control during the war when this thing came out. Okay, another thing, within the proclamation, it names some specific counties in Virginia where the proclamation will have no effect, and it names specific parishes in Louisiana where the federal army was in occupation. And the reason it kept the slaves there was Lincoln was using the slaves to work the field, to get the cotton, to sell to Europe, to finance the war. So there's Lincoln. Y'all call him the great emancipator, but he was actually a slave owner in Louisiana and in Virginia. So I hope this helps y'all out, man. You people need to be looking for any place where we've been lied to. And I'm going to throw something else. I was going to go further, another subject. I'm just going to barely touch on it. When Texas seceded from Mexico, Lincoln called secession a sacred right. The United States is based on popular sovereignty, that the government gets all its power from the consent of the government, that if the people are dissatisfied, they may remove the existing government and put a new one in its place. And if any portion of the country is dissatisfied, they may withdraw and create their own government. That's what we were founded on. And Abraham Lincoln fought against it. And anytime you see a candidate that says, I like Lincoln, well, they're anti the American dream of government. They're for big government and control. All this stuff is still out there, for at least for now. You can educate yourself, and I hope you do. Okay, I hope I made my point. Talafuse out.